The iPhone 14 Pro cameras are incredible. I take photos for a living, and this is the first iPhone that I can see replacing my mirrorless camera. In fact, I can barely tell the difference between this iPhone and my $5,000 camera. This review is focusing on the cameras of the new iPhone 14 Pro. We're taking photos with the new 48 megapixel sensor, pushing the wide and telephoto lenses, testing cinematic mode, using this for client photography, and comparing my $5,000 camera to the $1,000 iPhone. This is not an overall review of the phone. Go watch MKBHD for that. This review is for those of you that really care about the camera. Why should you trust me? I run a photo production company and my clients demand the best quality out there. I also teach you how you can start your own creative business. Will the iPhone 14 Pro replace my main camera? There's a lot to unpack here before we can answer that, so let's get into it. The star of the show here is going to be that main 24mm camera. We've got a new quad pixel sensor giving us a whopping 48 megapixels when shooting RAW. That's a big deal. The main camera has a 65% larger sensor, which will make it better for low light and also give you more bokeh or blurred background. Side note, what a lot of people don't know is that the amount of blurry background that you get is a relationship between the sensor size and your aperture. So a bigger sensor will give you way better depth of field compared to last year's iPhone 13 Pro. This new sensor also has a new version of their optical image stabilization. This is going to be fantastic for your videos. Everything should look buttery smooth. The new 48 megapixel sensor also leads to a new 2x telephoto option. The main camera crops into the middle of the sensor and gives you a crisp 2x optical zoom. That will spit out a 12 megapixel image that looks fantastic. We've got a new ultra-wide camera as well. It's a larger sensor and they're claiming 3 times better performance in low light. They're claiming the new lens is also sharper, so macro photography gets a lot better here. The 3x telephoto lens is improved as well. They say it gets twice the low light performance as last year's model. The front-facing camera is also new and improved. This year's model features autofocus for the first time. When I heard this, I immediately asked, wait, the front-facing camera didn't have autofocus? Anyways, now you can get a blurry background with that front-facing camera too. The flash, it's new and improved. Depending on which camera you're using, the way the flash fires will differentiate and it'll be specific to that lens. This should lead to better photos with flash. Now, on the softer side of things, we've got brand new action mode. This essentially turns your phone into a GoPro and gives you super smooth video, even if the phone itself is shaking. Pretty cool, and it works really well. Here I'm chasing a boat, I'm running, and the camera is shaking a lot, but the final footage looks super smooth. Same with this clip here when I'm chasing my dog around. In the second clip, this was shot around sunset, so there wasn't much light. There ended up being a lot of noise in this mode, so for action mode, you're gonna need a lot of light. Finally, cinematic mode has gotten an update. Now it can shoot 4K 30. It's a huge upgrade from last year. I never used cinematic mode on my iPhone 13 because it just looked bad. This year, it's way better and it does great around edges as well. Here you can see the clear separation between Rob and the background. Only if you look closely at his hair do you see some weird processing going on. I don't think that most people are going to notice this. Under the hood, we've got a brand new A16 Bionic chip. This delivers speeds that makes these new cameras work. Apple also unveiled a brand new way they process photos under the hood. They're calling it the photonic engine. When I first heard this, I thought it was going to be a huge upgrade. All the photos that your phone takes are processed in some sort of way so that they look good. Previously, the phone would take the photo, compress it, and then process it. There's not much data to work with once it's compressed, so there were a lot of compromises being made. Now that we have this brand new chip, the phone actually takes the uncompressed file, does all that processing, and then compresses it. This takes a whole lot of computational power, and this is how professional workflows do it too. On my Pro camera, I take the uncompressed file, I edit them, and then I compress them when I deliver them to clients. On paper, this sounds like the photonic engine should lead to a massive improvement in photo quality, and in reality, it's pretty minor. I'm not blown away by this new photonic engine, but it's nice to know what's actually going on under the hood. We've still got ProRAW and ProRes file types for photo and video. If you're using the iPhone and you just want to get the most quality out of it, you're going to want to use these formats. I've been mainly shooting in ProRAW so that I can get all 48 megapixels, from that main camera. If you don't shoot in RAW, it defaults to 12 megapixels. ProRes files are still kind of huge, so I'm still figuring out when to actually shoot in ProRes. By the way, did you catch that? Did you see what I just did there? For the past 30 seconds, I've been recording this talking headshot on my iPhone. The other parts of this video are recorded with a $5,000 setup, so drop a comment below and let me know if I tricked you. All right, back to it. All right, there we go. That's a lot better. By the way, if you're getting any value out of this video so far, drop a like. Anyways, let's talk about some drawbacks to this main camera. And yes, there are some drawbacks. First, if you're shooting in RAW on the 48 megapixel sensor, your files are going to be huge, anywhere from 75 to 100 megabytes. That means 10 photos can take up a gigabyte of storage. Since these photos are so big, there is a noticeable delay of about 2 seconds every time you take a photo. Your phone won't let you take another photo until that first one is done saving. Kind of annoying. Now, here's something I haven't heard any other review mention. Minimum focusing distance. What's that? It's the minimum distance you need to be away from your subject for your phone to focus. This is usually a function of sensor size and the lens. Now that we have a new sensor and lens, the minimum focus distance has increased from 5.9 inches on the iPhone 13 Pro to 7.8 inches on these phones. Now, 2 inches may not sound like a lot, but when you're recording things up close, your phone is going to want to switch to that macro mode and not let you record with that main camera. My girlfriend Kayla runs a baking blog, and she was trying to record a video for her Instagram. On her old phone, she could just bring in the camera from far away all the way up close and capture the details. Now, you can't do that. If you want to recreate the same scene, you need to cut that video, switch to the macro lens, and then resume. This is a serious drawback of this new sensor size. This next one is mainly a good thing, but there can be a bit of a drawback. This phone comes with a new screen, and with that we've got the always on display, which for now I'm enjoying. And secondly, we've got a new outdoor brightness. When you use this phone outside, the screen goes all the way up to 2000 nits. This is super bright. No matter what the lighting conditions are, you can easily see all that's happening on the screen. Now, when you're taking photos outside, this means your screen is going to be at peak brightness for a long time. This peak brightness plus all the photo processing power is going to eat away at your battery. If you're planning on using this phone to take a lot of photos outside, then you might need to bring a battery pack with you. So far, I've been getting all-day battery life with this phone, with the exception of when I was testing it outside. When I was doing my outdoor camera tests, the battery really suffered, and around 5 or 6 p.m., I was at 10% and I had to recharge. Another drawback of the screen is your photo exposure. If you're someone like me who likes to mess with the exposure a lot, then this screen might throw you off at first. When I first took it outside, I was cranking the exposure down a lot because I like to expose for the highlights and not the shadows. I always do this with my pro cameras. The problem with the phone was that I ended up underexposing these photos by a lot because of that bright screen. The screen was so bright that I thought I had the right exposure, but in reality, it was way under. The second time I went out shooting, I corrected myself and the photos came out much better. Okay, so you've waited long enough. We know all about the new cameras. Now the question is, will the new iPhone 14 Pro replace my main $5,000 camera setup? Yes, but only sometimes. Will it replace my camera for cityscape photography I do all around Chicago? Yeah, it will. After testing it extensively, I can honestly say that I can just use this iPhone for this type of photography. As long as I shoot in RAW, I can process these images just like I would my main camera. There are a lot of details here to work with, and with a 48 megapixel camera, I can crop in a lot. With a 3x telephoto, that unlocks the same benefits as my Sony with a 24 to 70 millimeter lens on it. And with the wide angle, it gives me even more flexibility. The phone is small, it's light, it's portable, and it's easier to use than my camera. It's good enough, and for 95% of people, these are the photos they want to capture. Will it replace my camera for client work? No. For that, I need the best of the best, and I won't compromise. I work with big brands that need the best quality in their photos. And by the way, if you're interested in starting a photography business, I have a free checklist that will jumpstart your photography business in just 30 days. Check out that free download in the description. It's right next to the like button. Let's look at some photo comparisons of some product photography. First, we have this lifestyle tabletop setup. I posted this on my Instagram asking which one you think was shot on an iPhone. Take a second, pause the video, and try and figure it out. When I posted this on Instagram, it was a 50-50 tie. It seemed like most people couldn't tell them apart. They're both shot with a 24mm focal length and edited to look exactly the same. The photo on the left was shot on iPhone, and the photo on the right was shot with my main mirrorless camera. The only way I could tell this apart is that the playing card on the left is a little bit out of focus. The way the phone processes bokeh isn't that great, so if you zoom in, you'll be able to tell, but still, both of these were extremely close. Next, I want to test out a typical photo I'll take for clients. This is a classic product photo. We have the main subject, our can, on a colored backdrop with some harsh lighting. I added some water droplets to add texture to the photo as well. This is shot with the 24mm sensor and both are edited to look identical. In this one, there's one giveaway that you might be able to notice. On the left side, we've got the iPhone shot once again. Here, the colors on the can look kind of muted. With my Sony camera, you can tell how bright and beautiful these colors are. The dynamic range on the phone just isn't there to process those colors. I wasn't able to brighten them up in Lightroom either. They're just a little too muted on the iPhone photo. And for client work within my company, that's a compromise I just can't make. Check out this next photo with a telephoto lens. These are both shot at the same focal length. You can now see more detail in the water droplets, and honestly, the telephoto camera is still really good, even though it's only 12 megapixels and it's a smaller sensor. Now, no surprise here, on the left, we've got the iPhone. The colors are muted here as well, and that's a dead giveaway for me. Now, what I'm about to say next surprises even me. You can start a photography business with this phone. I can't believe I just said that, but yeah, you can start a photography business with this phone. It is good enough for client work. iPhone cameras have been getting really good over the years, but there hasn't been a point where I could comfortably say that you can use this for client work. That changes now. The 48 megapixel sensor on this phone is to thank for that. The 12 megapixel files just didn't cut it. There was less room for cropping and editing in Lightroom and Photoshop. This new main 48 megapixel camera is definitely good enough, but the other two cameras are still not there. Like I mentioned, I'm not going to be using this camera for client work, but for anyone just starting out, it will be plenty. There's still a lot of reasons why I would choose my main $5,000 setup. Things like dynamic range, different lenses that unlock new focal lengths, editing flexibility, those are all still important considerations for me. If you choose this phone for product photography, you'll still need to master lighting and buy continuous lights to shoot with. Don't expect to take client level shots with just the phone. Proper lighting is huge. For that shot that I showed you earlier, I used artificial light to be able to capture the product shots. And those lights are still a requirement if you want to use this phone in a professional setting. Speaking of professional settings, even if you decide to use this phone for your photography business, I would never take it to a client shoot. You would need to work remotely in your own studio. If you show up with a phone to a client shoot, they'll question why they're paying you money for this. After all, they have the same phone in their pockets. They don't always get that it's the person behind the camera, not the camera itself, that actually matter. And even if you try and explain this to them, the perception of using a phone during a professional shoot still makes you look cheap. Use your phone during remote studio shoots, not when it's on location. So, who should get this phone? A lot of people actually. This is the first iPhone where I felt that it can actually replace my camera for a lot of uses. The most common question I get asked is, what camera should I buy as a beginner? I used to recommend a beginner mirrorless camera with a lens. Now, I'm going to be recommending this iPhone 14 Pro. As a beginner, this is the best way to learn photography. This phone will teach you about composition. It'll provide you with raw files that you can learn to edit in a way that is unique to you. It will teach you about exposure. It gives you the flexibility of different focal lengths to explore different creative options. And it's extremely easy to use. Then when you're ready to invest in something nicer, you'll be able to learn the manual controls and all that good stuff. But quite honestly, this $1,000 phone still will beat any camera in that same price range. It's better than a lot of $2,000 or $3,000 setups as well. If you're upgrading from the 13 Pro or the 12 Pro, it depends on your budget there, but if you really care about cameras, get this phone. I'll end this video with a tweet from one of my heroes, Casey Neistat. Casey is the reason I'm on YouTube. This tweet isn't referring to this iPhone specifically, but to technology in general. Here it is. This tech is wild. Where we are, video effects, animations, etc., is finally simplified, accessible to all. That combined with high quality video via phones being ubiquitous means nothing aesthetic is interesting or unique. All that remains is story. It's the great equalizer. Story is king. We all have the ability to take photos and create videos. What kind of story will you tell through your photos and videos? That's all I got today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.